Welcome to Brian Hawkins Kenpo Karate. I'm Brian Hawkins. We are working today out of our Granada Hills, California dojo, which is just outside of Los Angeles. And as all of you know, our communities, our city, our state, our nation, our world is all involved with the coronavirus situation right now, which is limiting our access to not just my dojos, but any dojos around the country. We have schools in other countries that are experiencing the same thing, lockdown situations, some worse than ours, some not as bad. But I want to make sure in these times, whether it lasts a week, 2 weeks, a month, however long, and to what degrees, that our students, whether they're here in the Los Angeles area, our Camarillo dojo, our West LA dojo, Granada Hills, or a lot of our affiliates in Texas, Northern California, over in Europe, that in this time, we're staying in communication, obviously through email, and we've all been communicating. But this will help a lot, I believe, in staying up on curriculum, staying up on training. We plan on having these sorts of lessons, actual hour-long group classes coming up the next day or two, certainly by next week, some private lessons, lots of different types of instructions. I'm going to have some of our other students, even some of my own children who are real fitness buffs and have a lot of knowledge in that area, great athletes, coming in and giving tips, especially a lot of you parents with children, on exercises they can do during this time that we're all kind of shut in, and even beyond that, just exercise they should do every day to stay fit and stay healthy and stay strong. Oddly enough, today is Ed Parker's birthday, so today he would have been 89 years old. And so I think that is very appropriate, really just by happenstance that it worked out this way. And it reminds me right away of one of the many things he said to me in my years as his student that really stuck with me. One of them was, oddly enough too, the same thing my grandfather had said to me many, many years before Ed Parker said it. And in fact, when Ed Parker said this to me, Ed Parker himself was about the age I am now, about 59. And that was, he says, Brian, I can learn something new from my art every day. Every day I train, every day I work through stuff, and I can improve every day. And I remember taking that home with me that day, looking at my notes and seeing that I wrote that down, that he said that. And that just really sunk in, because if Ed Parker could learn something every day and continue to improve, so can we. So today, like I say, in our dojos, we have, the Kenpo curriculum is very vast. And so what I did many years ago is split it up and into a 6-week rotation of curriculum. This particular week, the week that we're shut down, is katas, sets, and kicks. So, and we're have limited time today. This is the first time we're doing this. I don't want to get so deep in the woods with some things that our lower ranked students don't understand it. And I don't want to make it so simplistic that some of our medium rank and age people and more advanced guys, it doesn't apply to them as much. But again, as Parker said, we can learn something new every day. I learn things new every day just from our own students, just teaching classes. You learn something new. Mr. Parker always said, white belts are the most dangerous student you have on the mat, and sometimes they're the ones you learn the most from. Because they're unorthodox, they push you into areas you weren't necessarily ready for. So with that in mind, I'm going to pick out just certain parts of salutation. We'll do the whole salutation, and then certain parts and certain aspects of short form 1, long form 1, short form 2, long form 2, and a little bit of short form 3. We're not doing the whole forms, we're doing different parts of them. Sometimes they're misunderstood, and that's kind of my goal today. So starting with the salutation. Everyone knows, almost everyone knows the salutation, but make sure, again, we're all on the same page. I always teach this as a 6 count. And oddly enough, some people still, after many times doing this and being in many classes, they say, why do you have 6 count? I say, because you step 6 times. There are 6 foot maneuvers. If you break everything down, our techniques, our katas, even something as simple as salutation, break it down into what basics are involved in that sequence. Well, in salutation, you have hand positions and maneuvers, and of course, foot positions and maneuvers. So on 1, it's just a front crossover. Front crossover is a foot maneuver, but you land in the right front twist stance. So one is there as our hands come up to this position. Open hand represents the scholar, closed fist is the warrior. They are not touching. They are here. On number 2, they come together. The scholar over the warrior. They go side by side, back to back. As my left foot pulls back to my twist stance again, I do keep my body straight this time, facing straight ahead, unlike before when it was on a 45, but it technically still is a twist stance. I pull back, and as my left foot hits the ground, my hand, the back of my hands hit my solar plexus. On number 4, we bring it all the way together. I pull it together. On number 5, my left foot goes out, I clear away, bring all the way up to the triangle, unity of mind, body, and spirit. Left hand over right, bring it down, hands come together. On number 6, we close. Sudasha. This is Sudasha Smith, one of our brown belt instructors here. So just so you can have a different perspective, so have a couple of students. So from this position, remember, 6 counts. If you break it down that way, sometimes it's easier to learn, easier to remember. So right foot starts in, and we have to go in a straight line. So 1, there's a straight line from my front heel to my back toe. It's not crossed over. We're not crossed over here somewhere. A lot of people do that. It's not. It's dead center. My hips are on an angle. My front foot is on an angle. My hips, my shoulders in a twist stance are almost always on the same angle. My head is here, and our resistance is here. We do not touch yet. The scholar and warrior come together. Come together. And that's why you put them together now. Side by side, back to back. As we now pull this towards our body, our hands come back, and so does our front foot. That's number 3. Now, most people, you're not going to stop in all these positions when you do it, but this is what you're passing through, and you have to see that. See, my body is more straight now, and then I roll it together. On number 5, we wipe away and go up, make the triangle, hands come together, hands in a praying position, and closing. Salutation. Thank you, Tasha. So, on the salutation, I can teach and talk about salutation for an hour, but I'm not going to do that today. But that gives you an idea of what it looks like. Some of you younger students, some of you beginning students, that's the salutation. We can talk about more of it later on. There'll be other videos we'll do, or FaceTime classes and whatnot, that I will talk more about. There's a lot to talk about. The history of it, what all the movements mean and whatnot. But for right now, just get that, practice it. Like I say, especially your beginning students and your younger students, practice it that way. The way I did it, the way Dasha did it, just in that fashion, count out 6. Try to see everything you're doing be corresponding to all those foot maneuvers. On short form 1, years ago I used to travel a lot before I started having kids of my own, and I decided not to travel anymore. But when I was traveling a lot, I've taken an hour and worked on short form 1. And then the next hour was long 1. Then the next 2 hours were short 2 or long 2. Meaning there's a lot to discuss in simple, what we perceive as simple things, like these early katas. But simple, yet not so simple. All right? So on short form 1, one of the keys is point of origin. I started in martial arts in the 70s, but not in Kenpo. I was doing boxing and wrestling, Shotokan, martial art, and then Kung Fu. And then in 1980, I moved to LA and found Kenpo. These first few katas, short 1 and long 1, were almost identical to katas I had in my Shotokan system. Short 2 had strong similarities to certain, one of the Kung Fu forms. Only because the motion is so simple, things as Mr. Parker's trying to show in these earlier katas is just basic motion. Short 3 is where you actually start the Kenpo techniques. That's when it starts becoming very uniquely Ed Parker's American Kenpo. So short form 1, I learned it a little bit different when I first learned short 1. When I got with Ed Parker and went through the entire system, a lot of things he polished up and moved around and changed, but showed me why it was this way and not the way I was doing it. So I share those things with you whenever I teach any of my students. So from this position, always imagine you have a string tied from your left ankle to your right wrist. As your left ankle goes straight back, it does not C-step back. I know that's a way it was taught over many years. It's not the way that Parker showed me, and it's not the way he wanted it taught at all of his schools around the world at that time. He said, Brian, point of origin, step straight back to your destination, and solidify. And that's it. So you step straight back to your left foot, and your right hand, and you'll know it, all you students will know it. When you do short one, a lot of you guys drop your hand and do that block. There is no, because that violates the principle of point of origin and, of course, economy of motion. So string tied to your left ankle to your right wrist. As you step back, your left ankle will pull the wrist straight in. So it's one solid action. It's not a two-stage action. We have many katas and techniques that are a two-stage action. This is not one of them. Then my foot is going to step right by my other foot. And this is a C-step, very slight, but you teach your students, and all you students training right now, have your feet pass right next to one another. So they don't step back like you're walking through the cow field. You step back, straight back, and land in that stance. So as I'm in this position, remember, I land in the stance, I block, and also visualize you're also doing an elbow strike behind you. That'll make sure you have this fist chambered. In short one, really you're doing it to show this block alone can be strong. This elbow alone can be strong, but when they are done together, one going this way, one going that way, and settling in, they actually make each other stronger. That's a type of opposing forces. There's not just one kind of opposing forces. So it's this. So now we step straight back and boom, same thing. And again, here's another one. If I did it wrong with that Parker, so I went to do move number 3, and my foot came up and back, like I had been taught. So he stood here and put a punch towards my head. He says, I'm going to move when you move. And when I got halfway through my move, which is right there, he was already hitting me in the head. He said, no, if they're moving towards you, why would you waste time moving here? You need to get going that way, because I'm coming from that direction. I says, yes, sir. So from here, this foot straight away, step directly away, and this hand straight away. Always like that. And then, of course, we're here, slight C-step, boom. When you cover, it's just a simple step, turn, block. And remember, vertical, diagonal. That's the compound action. As you step back, C-step, boom, same thing. Always stay low, heels out, knees out. From that position, step directly away. They are there trying to kick me here. I don't want to step towards them to step away from them. I want to step directly away from them. And step directly away from them. And then back to your horse and close. So Dash, watch her. She's going to just be doing this, and I'll talk. So same thing. She steps left foot straight back and straight in with her right block. So that was point of origin. She settled into a stance, heels out, knees out, doing an elbow strike behind, and a block, which is the other name for block. It's just a forearm strike. Because whether this is hitting an arm or whether I get too close, she's hitting here. Wherever it hits, it's a forearm strike. When used as a block, it's on the arm. But like we've said so many times before, there is nothing purely defensive in Kenpo. Everything is meant to deter the bad guy by hurting them, by limiting their action to retaliate. So everything has to be trying to cause an injury, something to slow them down or to stop them. On her next move, she steps back and blocks. Then she steps directly over, and go back to the last move, Dasha. So don't move. So if I'm punching here, if she were to come up one foot to the other and do it incorrectly, I'm already there. Even if she got her hand in place, she's there. But if she steps directly away from me, she's far away. That the target, which is her head, is far away from the weapon, which is my fist. Step directly away. And she steps back, there's another one. She covers, and then steps back, there's another one. Steps over, downward block. Steps back, one more. And then back to the horse, and then close. All right? So again, thank you, Doc. So again, point of origin. That's one of the keys in this, in all our stuff. Point of origin. Why? Because that helps you with economy of motion. Economy of motion is one of the pillars of Ben Parker's philosophy on martial arts, on defending yourself. Do not waste motion. If If you waste motion, that's going to waste time. You could get wasted. So don't do that. So you'll see it again and again and again in all the things we do, emphasizing those things. In long form one, again, I love going through long one, but again, I can do it for hours. I want to focus on the last part of long one. The last part of long one, again, one of the things it does, the last sequence, is to introduce the Kenpoists to new blocks. When you first learned short one, you knew there was a downward block. You only had one, that downward block. But there's also downward block this way and downward block that way, and others. But at this stage, going from short one to long one, there isn't just one kind of downward block anymore. This kind of downward block, you have to give it a specific name because there are other types of downward blocks. And words matter. Mr. Parker was very specific in his terminology. In fact, he was one of the things that made him a true pioneer of the martial arts. He gave things terminology. When I first started my Kung Fu system, now looking back on it, I think a lot of the teachers I had then weren't sure why they were doing certain things. They did it because their instructor told them, and his instructor told them, and on and on and on. No one really knew why. And they certainly couldn't explain it. When I was at Shotokan, kind of the same thing. And I remember distinctly thinking this in like 1977. I'm thinking, well, when I'm doing my wrestling, the coaches explained exactly why these things work. And when I was doing boxing, the boxing instructors were explaining exactly why you have that footwork. And I was wondering, why can't Kung Fu and Shotokan do this for me? I got to Ed Parker's Kenpo. In my very first lesson, there was a guy who taught me lone kimono. And he explained, he was a resident at UCLA, becoming a doctor. And he was so articulate, and he taught me lone kimono for about half an hour. And all the different angles and leverage points and you know, time, mass, and space, it was fantastic. So I knew I was at the right place. So, this is a downward outside block. When you come up to your horse stance for the final sequence of long form one, you come with a downward inside, palm down. So it's downward inside, palm down. You'll see how far this goes. It goes to the perimeter of my body. Mainly, Mr. Parker wants to show us that going here, when my palm down, I can reach all the way across. But when I put my palm up, and anyone of you watching right now or doing it later, you'll find your tricep hits your pec. Without turning or having to alter anything else, I can't go further. But if I simply turn my palm down, I can reach further because my tricep just rolled over. Because it's in a different position when I'm here and here. Sounds like a subtle thing, it's not that subtle. When you start looking at punches and how much more reach you can get as you rotate your wrist around. And again, I can go on forever about this, but the key to remember about long form one, you just finished your last downward outside block, which is on your center line straight out from your front knee. Come across and go to the perimeter of your body. And do another one, and do another one. Now, downward inside, palm up, otherwise known as a hammering downward block. But that goes to your center line for the reasons I just explained. My tricep just ran into my pec. I'm right there. And it's on your center line. Okay? So you went down inside, palm down, down inside, palm down, down inside, palm down. Then down inside, palm up, hammer. Down inside, palm up, down inside, palm up. And now the push downs. And again, all these blocks, you then are going to put, Mr. Parker puts in techniques at the end of long two. So we're coming in here. Push downs now, strike. My elbow is only slightly further away from me than the heel of my palm. And two, and three. When we go to do our punches, and this is important, because yes, this is a horse stance, but he's also starting to show us now, as he did earlier in this kata, there isn't just one kind of neutral bow. There's a neutral bow and a fully rotated neutral bow. The same way, there is a horse stance, like we're in now, and we'll do the first two punches. But there's also a modified horse stance, meaning we rotate our shoulders and our hips slightly. Shoulders a lot, hips slightly. But our knees and our feet do not change. Our foundation does not change. I go on the 45 and on the 45. Now I turn real deep, and this also harkens back to the Chinese roots of Kenpo. you'll see some of these moves in the original version of two-man set, black belt set. Go all the way to the side. So I'm still in the horse stance, but I'm trying to get my shoulders squared up to the 90 and all the way to the side. Then uppercut, uppercut, left over right, and close. So Dasha, if you can come in. So once again, you're in a right neutral bow. She steps up and does down inside palm down, down inside palm down, down inside palm down. That's the perimeter of her body. Down inside palm up, just to her center line. Palm up again, and then palm up again. Push downs, 1, 2, 3. And now the punches are 1, 2, and stay. The next opponent is here. So she rotates to hit here, 1 and 2. The next opponent is here. She rotates all the way, boom and boom. Then uppercuts, visualizing the jaw of somebody about your own height. 1, 2, and close. Okay? Thank you. So that's the end of long form 1. But that'll also play into long form 2. All right? On short form 2, it's hard for me to only teach parts of these katas right now, but I need to stick with what we need to do this evening. In short form 2, every time a new kata comes along, so the short one, very basic. Long one, you add a few things. Short 2, Mr. Parker adds a few more things. Long 2, even more things. So in short 2, there's a lot of things different from short 2 to long 1. But there's one technique, well, there's a lot of them, but there's one technique in particular that I always see people have a hard time with. And that is technique number 5 and 6, or count number 5 and 6, same technique. But it's where we're striking and dropping down. Now again, anybody who's been training Kenpo, some of you beginners might even have noticed this. In short 1, long 1, short 2, long 2, the sequence of blocks are always inward, outward, upward, downward. It's always the same sequence. You're just adding things. Like the same frame of the house, you're just adding things on that frame now. But the frame hasn't changed. The sequence of inward, outward, upward, downward never changes. Not in the first 4 katas. Changes after that, but not in the first 4 katas. So, with that in mind, in short form 2, we start with inward block techniques, outward block techniques, and now we go to the upward block technique. It's an upward block with some things added. And what that is as the strike's coming, you'll start it with just an overhead strike. Not necessarily a club, maybe an overhead punch. You can do a club attack, but something coming in this area, this realm, this height zone, this width zone. As you strike the arm, one of the things that makes short 2 different than long 1 and short 1 is your defense and offense are simultaneous. It's not block and then punch anymore. And it's not just block. This one, you're going to block their arm and hit them in the throat at the same time. So I'm shooting my hands together. My defensive hand, which isn't purely defensive, and my offensive weapon to their throat. So as I come up, I shoot in. So as I'm shooting this way, I block their arm and hit them in the throat simultaneous. Then I take this knuckle from the throat and slowly rip down to the solar plexus. In an actual technique, you would be more like that. You'd hit them in the throat and then rip it down. But the main thing is, block their arm and hit them in the throat at the same time. These have to go together. Then you simply drop down to your wide kneel. So you're in a good wide kneel. This arm then comes here. It's not on the angle anymore because you struck and dropped. And that's the position you're in. When you finish this technique in this kata, then you simply come up to the other side, do the same thing. Remember, always facing the 90 from where the attacker is coming from. So if I'm in this position, don't worry about 12, 6, 3, and 9 right now. In terms of where we started with 12, I'm just showing this technique now so you can see it best from that angle. So you're in this position, you don't really stop in the actual doing your kata, but this is what you're thinking about. You're looking to your right. So my body's facing 90 degrees from where I'm about to go, where he's attacking from. And then you'll step in. Hit, slowly drop down your wide knee. This stays here, this stays here. This didn't move, this dropped down. Okay? So Dasha's in a right neutral bow, facing 12, yeah? And she's just going to go right into the technique. So she's actually going to cat up and just step to her right and hit, and then drop down, and then cat up and hit, and drop down. And that's all it is. Okay? Now on the last technique, so that was technique 5 and 6, count number 5 and 6. On the very last technique though, Dasha, do this one with me. So we're in a heel palm here, right? What you're visualizing is, on the last technique of short 2, the opponent's coming from directly behind you. So you're facing on the 45, they're coming from the rear 45. Remember, you always want to try to move weapon and target. Move weapon, move target. What's the target? Is the back of my head. The weapon is a step through straight left punch. Visualize a step through straight left punch. Could be a right punch, but for the sake of just learning it, visualize at least something. Visualize a left straight punch. I pull this foot away from that person and go to your cat stance. So I was here, I moved my head. I didn't just turn my head, that's width. I changed my head the dimension of depth. I moved it all the way away from that person coming. And as I did that, I blocked to the inside of their punch. Obviously, you don't stay here either, but this is where you start. Inward block, and as I step in, I do my outward block, and then I take a half fist to their throat and come back. The half fist, you don't stay out there and lock it. I'm just doing that to show you. It's really snap out. It's a transitional forward bow. The minute this half fist hits him in the trachea to close it up, your leg locks. Your leg locks. Just transitional. Then again, the next strike is coming from this 45, and it's a right step through straight punch. I pivot with my back foot and block. Still moving away, not near as much as before, but this is the option now is it's coming on this angle. I step in with the extended outward block, get my half fist ready, it's down here, boom, hit, so just transitional. And don't bring your heel up off the ground. See my heel's off the ground? That's incorrect. You have to have the heel on the ground to have the bracing angle. Snap it, and then horse it. Okay? So that's taking 5 and 6 and 9 and 10 out of short form 2. So work on that. Work on that. Now, in long form, thank you, Dasha. In long form 2, remember we said the blocks you do at the end of long 1, you now have at the end of, or towards the end of long 2. So those blocks, done as individual blocks, are now put into techniques. Okay? So for instance, we'll do it this way. In long form 2, you're doing your pokes. At this position now, you're going to rear cross and downward block this way. Unwind and punch. So one more time, you're in this position. You're going to rear cross, block, unwind, punch. Rear cross, block, unwind, punch. That's the actual technique. What kind of block was it? Downward inside palm up. So if you're doing this and you're thinking front hand, rear hand, if you're doing these pokes and you start doing your first side, then don't worry about right and left right now. In the kata, you'll be at, I think this is number 13 at long form 2. So you're striking. Or it could be at number 11 maybe. 11 I believe is what this is through 18. So from here, the lead hand is going to do the block. The lead hand. And right now as I'm in the left picture bow, the lead hand is my left hand. So as I rear across, boom, do your twist stance, the down inside palm up, the inside of a kick that's coming at you, unwind, punch. Again, twist stance. And my foot and hand hit at the same time. Unwind, boom, punch. On the next one, those are down inside palm up. Now, down inside palm down. So I block down inside palm down, continue going, vertical outward, uppercut to the face. This next foot maneuver, remember you have to differentiate between foot maneuvers and stances. So the foot maneuver is a reverse step through. It's not a twist stance, not a crossover. It's a reverse step through to a neutral bow. So I just did the uppercut. I went 1, 2, 3. Now I do a step through reverse, boom. As I land, down inside palm up, boom, boom. Then I do the push down. This is in a forward bow. I was originally taught this in a nice twist stance years ago, but Mr. Parker said, nope, forward bow. Elbow slightly from the furthest point away from your body, and as you come through now, keep your elbow in their solar plexus, because by hitting their knee strike and negating their knee strike, it throws their torso towards you. As they do that, boom, you put your elbow out to hit your elbow in their torso, in their solar plexus. then step through and claw. That's a heel palm, then a claw. Two-stage action. 1, 2. Blunt force, then your sharp buttons. 1, 2. Push down, again, big time forward bow, elbows coming out to the solar plexus, come through, claw. Again, hit, elbow comes out, come through, and claw. That's your position on those techniques. So Dalsha, if you can come in. So if she's facing me, and she's doing her last poke, she does her rear cross, front hand, down inside, palm up, unwind punch, that's a vertical punch, and it's straight out. It's not up, it's not down, straight out. And she does the next block. You see how she blocks on her center line, her back foot just hit the ground and unwinds. Okay, get that synchronicity of landing and striking at the same time. Now the attack's coming from that corner. She steps back, down inside, palm down, vertical outward, uppercut. And then step back, one more time, first step through, boom, boom, boom. Now it's the push down. She hits it and comes through with her elbow, hits it, comes through with her elbow. Now this one, I'll show you basically what's supposed to be happening. I'm throwing a left knee strike to her midsection or below. She's going to heel palm me on my thigh. So boom, when she does that, if I have a lot of energy coming up and someone negates that energy, it stops it, it throws your body forward. So it goes this, and I land right on her elbow, and she steps through with the elbow pressing and heel palm claw. Okay? All right, so that's part of your long form 2. And again, all of these parts of these katas we're doing and speaking about are parts over the last, 3.5 decades that I've been teaching Kenpo that people seem to either forget or never really quite had really understood the finer points of those moves. There is generally, when I have more time, and we will get to it, not tonight, we'll get to it, is also explaining all the attacks. One of the things that was very beneficial to me when I was finally honored enough to get Mr. Parker to be his student is when we went through the system, that's mainly what he did. He knew I had all the motion. He was going to make certain changes here and there and make sure that I understood the principles and concepts, because that's really the most important thing. But on a lot of these things that he was doing, he would also tell me the attacks. And I was, on a lot of these things, we were never really sure, me and all the guys I trained with at the time, we never really sure of the attacks. So we just, say, oh, it's probably for this. And we would look great doing it, but it's hard to teach it properly if you're really not sure what the attack is. And then, of course, you need to be able to understand and explain the principles and concepts of what we're doing. So, in short form 3. Now, short form 3 is a lot of fun. It's like I say, it's the first kata that is pure Ed Parker's American Kenpo. You're not going to find another system that has something that's almost looks just like that. Like Long One, I told you, my experience at Shotokan. I have some Shotokan black belts who are currently students of ours for many years. And they verified. They've shown me their version of Long One, but they called it something else, and it was 3 belts up in their system, but almost the same thing. So I felt that was unique. So short 3 is great for just getting into the actual techniques. But here's the thing you need to know and need to remember. The techniques that we have in the system have gone through an evolution. So the way Mr. Parker did Grip of Death, let's say, in 1957 is very different than the way he did it in 1987 when I was with him and whatnot. So, and it goes for all the techniques. So the techniques evolved. So in the techniques, you can see the evolution. But the katas, to a large degree, show us the history of the art. Because many of the techniques that are in katas, especially short 3, long 3, 4, 5, and 6, are the original versions of those techniques. Or at least one of the original versions that Mr. Parker wanted to put in to show us that's the way it used to be done. Just as a training tool, as a historical perspective. So, and I found that fascinating. So when people say, how come Grip of Death, or how come Crossing Town, how come this is done differently? Well, that's why. Because that's one of the early versions of the technique, and Mr. Parker wanted to keep that somewhere so we all have a sense of history, which we all should anyway about everything, not just our Kenpo. So in short form 3, when we'll go down to circling wing. So I just finished circling wing. I'm about to do crossing talon. I'll do it this way so you see it a little easier. So if I'm here and I'm hammering to the groin after circling wing, now the attack is crossing, the technique is crossing talon next. But the attack is a two-hand grab to my right wrist. So the original way this was taught is go to a horse stance and grab your own fist. Grab your own fist. You're not grabbing their hands, you're not pulling back and doing all the things we do now. You're simply grabbing your own fist. And the idea is, and you should practice this with someone in your sphere of influence that is larger and stronger than you, and have them grab at least one hand or two hands and see if you can break the grip. They grab here, you're going to anchor your elbow and pull, just pull this arm down, and here's the key, most importantly at the same time, push this hand over. My left pushes, my right drops down. So I'm going this way, okay? So if I'm in, I'll go to this position. So if I'm here, and I go to my horse stance and grab, literally grab the end of your fist, and then step through 180 degrees, boom. Now I'm in a horse stance here, pressing down on their elbow as I re-grab with my hands. But just focus on this. In the Kata, just keep your hands like this. Now, you see how foot two, it's a horse stance, but it's slightly leaning in on them. Back knuckle behind the right ear, circle, and elbow down. And that's how that technique goes. That's the actual version of crossing talon. Okay? From there, scraping hoof. Scraping hoof, these days, is done with 3 kicks. Back in the day, it was done with 1. So again, full Nelson coming up from behind us. We punch, make our whole body rigid. I raise in elevation because I've straightened my legs. I brought my feet closer together, which gives me greater height. And punch, everything gets strong. From this position, I simply bend my right leg, knife edge. So I'm not going to go 1, 2, 3 like we do now. It's simply shift your weight a little bit, knife edge, land. That's it. From here, fatal cross. Step in and hook. Now it's a low grab or push. Visualize the 2 arms. I hook, it's the weapon. I hook inside, see my hands are closed, like the inside to the outside. Inside, outside, turn the corner, outside, back, inside. When you look at these middle knuckles coming into strike, striking here to the ribs. My weapons, these knuckles, aren't just going towards the opponent, they're also coming closer together. Going towards the opponent is the dimension of depth. My hands come close together, that's the dimension of width. And if they rise higher, that's height, height with the depth. Everything's about height with the depth, everything. So I inside out, outside in, right over left. Crush, so these, when I drive a stake through my wrist, or tie a rope around, or string around my wrist, so they don't slide this way or this way, keep them affixed here. If you just extend your arms, the backs of your knuckles hit underneath his temple. So strike, it's an old Chinese strike from the Kata from a long time ago. It's a Chinese move. I actually had this in my old Kung Fu system. So strike there. And then open your hands, form different weapons, and then stick to the eyes. So again, inside to outside, outside to inside, cross, strike, strike. Now remember, as you're coming in, these middle knuckles come up, in, and together. Up, in, and together. So when you strike, you're actually crushing in. I keep going to the subterranean targets and going deeper into their body with my hands my knuckles like they're trying to touch. Okay? And then bop, bop. All right? So Dash, be in this position, face get here. Boom, reverse bow. Good. So this position, and again, it's Kata, so they're not really coming from here. The technique is still, the attack is here. So she pivots to a horse stance and grabs. Now, the idea being, if I'm a hell of a lot bigger and stronger, and I'm even just grabbing with 1, and she just tries to pull back and do all that without doing this, it's one-on-one. Mr. Parker changed it because he wanted to make sure this hand, I couldn't just let go, but also he wanted to make sure these days that hand hit me in the arm, and then go ahead and do the arm bar the way we do it now. All right? But in the original way, he focused more on just power, how to break their grip. So if I'm grabbing here, she just grabs her own fist, and don't step all the way. Just drop that and push that. Yes. So I'm telling you,
even grabbing hard, and she goes hard, yeah, once it starts pushing me past this plane, she's gonna take it all the way. Because then this elbow comes in and taps here, and starts pushing me down. But do that with someone, like I said, larger than you. So, horse stance, she grabs, and then she steps in and presses down, and then back knuckle, circle, and now, the next technique, scraping hook, she simply just, everything goes rigid. Remember, her left foot comes in slightly like it did, and she does a right knife edge. Then she steps in, inside out, hooks, and comes right back in. 1, 2, 3. But on those middle knuckles coming in, so she's going here, she just now hooked my arms down. So as those come in, good. So they're coming, they don't stay out this wide, and they don't just stay this wide. They come and they keep getting closer. She hits, they drive towards me. So you're going through their body, still trying to connect, still coming up, still going in. Then she crosses and comes up and just comes both sides. And then comes back down, boom. Then she steps in to the horse stance, hammers in. So horse stance and grip of death. Horse stance, not a kneeling stance. The original version was just a horse stance. And from that horse stance, she simply reaches up and grabs. Now from here, however you affix your hand onto their body, whether it's the hair, the eye sockets, the philtrum, but the idea is, see my elbow is up high? One of the power points you have is to drop that elbow hard, and it gives whatever you got a hold of, tug real hard back. You just use your body weight and drop that elbow. So she drops her elbow and then does the heel bump. Okay? And that's the original version of grip of death. Thank you, Josh. And we'll leave that one there. All right? So on these katas, highlight all the things that I highlighted. You'll have questions. We'll come back in a day or two, or certainly by next week, do a little more of this, jump into techniques, and I think especially, well, it gets you guys not just working on it, but thinking about it. Everything is always trying to improve. Like Mr. Parker said, if he can learn something every day about his art, if he can improve every day within his own art, that philosophy we have as martial artists and as Americans, you know, as a people, that's what we have to do. Perfect. So, Darren, did you have one?
Yeah, there's actually a couple. One's very simple. Ms. Burns is looking for clarification on the targets for the uppercuts in long one at the end.
Jaw. So, once we go all the way to the side, come up, someone approximately your own height, uppercut to the jaw, uppercut to the jaw. And don't leave them both out there. I see a lot of people doing that. They come back just like all the other ones came back. Boom, boom, and then close.
Another question. Why in long two on 15, 16, 17, why is it a forward bow instead of a twist stance? You mentioned that, but people were curious about
Stronger. So, work this with some friends sometime. And I always like the twist stance because it looks so much better to me aesthetically. I liked it a lot better, and I know that Mr. Parker does pay attention to aesthetics. When we go to further higher ranked katas, there are literally points in those katas where I said, Mr. Parker, why is it this and that? He says flat out, he says, because that wide nail looks better in that part of that kata. The technique is not a wide nail, but it looks better there, so that's where I was. Fair enough. So, forward bow, if you have someone come in with a lot of power, like I say, play around with each other with this, come in with a strong knee strike. You don't, twist stance oftentimes, that twist stance, it just isn't enough to match the power they're coming in with. They have a ton of backup mass coming in, they have a lifting action coming, and once you stop that lifting action and it shoots their body in on you, it's a lot of weight coming your way. And from here, coming out of a twist stance, you might not have the launch capability or certainly the backup mass or even the brace to do it. When you hit here, boom, when you hit that hard and they fall on your elbow, nothing's going to get through my locked leg. It just isn't. Even the guys are a lot larger than me. Once you hit and this actually caused the reaction of falling in and then your elbow comes out, they land right on it and then just launch forward. And that launch coming from that forward bow, that's the key. Did you stop it? And then boom, can you support it? So at this point, I want to make sure, 250-pound guy, I can get my elbow up in his solar plexus, and now with that locked leg, now I can launch forward. Once I've stopped it, now I go forward. And that's why.
There was another question about the timing of the elbow, which I think you just answered. So I'm gonna skip that one. I hope everyone was watching because he answered two
Your elbow
questions at once.
stays connected to their body all the way to the neutral bow. Once you land in the neutral bow, boom, heel palm claw. Is that the one?
Yeah. So, but the timing coming into it, basically.
Yeah. So when you're here and the elbow comes in, this doesn't move. This should be the furthest point from my body, further than my knee. So when I launch forward, I'm literally just driving it back this way. It's still there. I never lost contact. Once my foot lands, heel palm claw. Basically.
Yeah. And one more, I just think it's interesting. One more question. For the palm up blocks in long one, if you can extend past your center line, should you?
Yeah.
All,
really, I mean, yeah, because again, everything is modified anyway. Because we're saying that this is all restricted. He wants us to see that a subtle change like this gives you about another 8 inches of rotation and range. Just a subtle thing like that. And when you start applying that to different parts of the system, and you start thinking, it's like, that does make a lot more sense. Just that little thing. Obviously, we're going to be turning and doing things and adjusting, but just making us aware of, it's the details of these techniques. It's not always the big principles and concepts that are the most important. It's the details. Little things like that we have to pay attention to if we want to perfect our art to a certain degree. All right, good. All right, so like I say, we are looking to do another session tomorrow, and then we'll notify you when the next one is. Probably Monday, but let's get through tomorrow because we have a couple different things we're doing. I think tomorrow is going to be one. It won't be a live session, but it'll be one of my sons going through some exercises that your kids can do. Well, it goes for everybody, but mainly for your kids during this time when they're maybe cooped up in the home, to do these things at home, and he'll lead them through why you're doing it, what muscles are involved, how often they should do it, how many reps. And if they hit this sequence that he's speaking of, it'll take them about 15, 20 minutes to do it. Do it in the morning, do it at night, and it'll do wonders for their overall fitness and strength. It'll absolutely help their Kenpo. All right, everybody. Thank you so much.